Welcome to The Word Revealed with David Palmer and Scott Burns, where we talk about everything Bible from Genesis to Revelation. Let's join the conversation.
Welcome back to The Word Revealed. I'm David Palmer with my good friend Scott Burns and special guest Dr. Jerry Pattengale. Jerry, it's great to have you with us to talk about the Bible. And Scott and I just finished a season of The Word Revealed on the book of Acts, and we saw the explosive growth of Christianity. We saw the cost of that witness at times in suffering. Suffering has a powerful way of reinforcing the truth of the gospel message, and even suffering to its ultimate degree to giving your life in testimony to Jesus. So you've written a recent book it's an updated edition of a classic work, the Fox's Book of Martyrs. So I wonder if we could spend a little time just talking about that story and how getting into those stories impacted you and what you'd want readers or listeners to know about that.
Well, thanks. It's always a joy to talk about this book and the subject, although it can be sad at times, but it should be encouraging. So Tyndall House asked us to do this. Johnny Moore is a co-author. Johnny Moore has interviewed hundreds of survivors and the families of martyrs. The main addition to this book is the last section, the last quarter of the book is about recent martyrs. And you've heard many quotes about there's more martyrs in the last few years in the history of Christianity, and it's still going on. It's really sad. And so the last part of the book is real solid. Daniel, who helped him with these interviews. Johnny was known for flying planes over with Mark Burnett and Roma Downey to help rescue the people fleeing from ISIS. So he's been very involved in this, and he's only like 41 years old now. He's got the Simon Wiesenthal Award. So this book comes from the two of us, a historian and a modern humanitarian. He just got the Indiana Wesleyan University Award, the World Changer Award, for all of his work here. So we come to it saying Fox needs to be updated. And the other thing about Fox, I'm actually very happy that you and Scott are asking about this book, because Fox is after the Marian Martyrs. 1553 to 1558, she's a staunch Roman Catholic, killed a lot of Protestants, is nicknamed Bloody Mary, which is kind of unfortunate because the Protestants rulers killed a lot of people too. And so he's reacting to that, and so it's a pretty anti-Catholic book. The original Fox is a pretty anti-Catholic book, and so we decided, and we were both very ecumenical and working across the aisles, and my different positions at both Christianity Today, National Press Club, Yale, other places where I have board appointments. You need to be able to work across the aisle on a lot of different subjects. And so what we did is we wanted to represent Catholic and Protestant martyrs. We don't represent Jewish martyrs per se because we can only cover so much. So we ended up with this large book to update it, to make it more readable. And we have call-out sections like Did You Know? And like St. Catherine's, how did that name end up on a college? And, it's the whole story of how the wheel broke when they were trying to kill her, and then they believed her body was taken out to St. Catherine's Monastery, where that's at. And
in Sinai.
Yeah. Sinai. And so there's so many fascinating stories. And so we decided to find digestible chunks. And so we even have a chapter on women martyrs. So we say we have enough women martyrs to do this. A whole section in Albania. You have the Muslim conquest and martyrdom, which is gruesome. And so you have what's broadcast as the religion of peace, but history doesn't really bear that out. We really try to work across the aisle and say it might be a peaceful religion today in certain countries. Certainly there are peaceful governments in the Islamic tradition, but in history these were not peaceful times, and so we try to represent that throughout, and to be balanced, and then to have scripture in everyone, and then we have modern thinkers in everyone. So that's how we did the book, and it was supposed to be fully illustrated, and it was going to be about 1,300 pages. It's now 624, as it was going to press, they called me and they needed to cut 100,000 words.
That's a lot of stories.
Yeah. I turned my hands upside down on the keyboard and just asked God to help me represent these people, because I didn't feel adequate to do it. And I learned a lot. There are a lot of people aren't in the book.
And some of those stories you have close connection to as well.
I was just going to write on your notepad, ask me about Cheryl Beckett.
I just did.
Yeah, you just did. So one of my students is the saint, some people would say, Cheryl Beckett. Cheryl Beckett was a student of mine, just a lovely young woman. She turned down Johns Hopkins medical school to go and help people in different countries, and ended up spending a lot of time in Afghanistan. And she was helping, like, growing these sustainable gardens, helping with eye exams, and they went out as a medical team, 10 of them. The rivers came up during the night. It was just a quick trip out, and they had to stop for the river to go down, and some ISIS rebels came in, and they saw a Bible in the dash, and they lined them up and shot them one at a time, including Cheryl. And this was the first of the wave of martyrdoms in that section. And her dad helped me write that section, and he found in her journal her reflecting on scriptures about dying for Christ. And she asked the question, what does it really mean to die to Christ, and how can I ever fully understand that? Can you imagine having a father discussing that with you when his beautiful, lovely daughter, inside and out, a true humanitarian, end up finding out firsthand what it means? And her picture is on a plaque in the beautiful library at Indiana Wesleyan, and most days when I walk through there, I stop and salute it. Some people from a distance, they probably wonder what in the world I'm doing, but we have a building named after her as well. But, I help with the Moody campus. The Green family purchased the Northfield campus for D.L. Moody. I was walking up to Moody's tomb one day. He built a campus. A lot of people don't realize that he was born and died in Northfield, Massachusetts. And it's a gorgeous campus he built. The Moody Center is now there, that we planted in his homestead and other things. I see these 12 or 16 spruce trees, and I thought that's an odd cluster of trees. Each of those trees on that campus were representing people who were martyred that had gone to school there. And I thought, wow, it's the Martyrs' Grove. And I thought there's so many stories, of these martyrdoms. And unfortunately today, some of those martyrs are dying not too far, from us.
How did the stories that you learned about, how do they shape your own faith, and what would you want listeners to know or build into their own faith as you?
That's an excellent question. I would recommend first. So the book's at Tyndall House. It's written so you can read a chapter a day. You don't, some people love just read through books, but it's kind of bite-sized, and so I learned history as I went through. I learned the meaning of certain scriptures in their lives that these people held on to. Not everyone died for Christ with joy. I also learned what it meant when Christians are killing Christians. That was really tough. I went to Cranmer's office at Lambeth Palace and sat there. He wrote the Book of Common Prayer, and you see some of these people, these great minds, and they die at the hand. So are they a martyr? So then how do you even define a martyr? Whether a Christian kills you or a Muslim or just someone who's evil, you're still dying for your beliefs in that. And so that challenged me daily to think through that. So that would probably be the biggest thing. And then I learned about, you learn the extents. When you read about the Japanese martyrdoms, so the movie Silence came out while I was writing this. I was sitting in in Cambridge at the Cambridge Library looking through first, second, third edition Fox. So they got bigger. I mean, they're huge. Someone was robbing the Harvard Library once and fell out the window because he went to grab, it was either that book or the Gutenberg. These books were so heavy, it was too heavy and he fell. They caught him because he broke his leg. So it may have been Gutenberg and not Fox, but whatever it was, these are big, hefty books. And I get a call, and I don't know if it was Peter Williams or someone there in Cambridge. At the time I was a fellow at Tyndall House, Cambridge, and we actually, the Museum of the Bible and the Green family, purchase manuscripts that are on display there at Cambridge. The American Bible Society has, or the British Bible Society, now called the Bible Society, has their huge collection there too, which is wonderful. I get a call that Silence is just opening up across the way, and thought, man, you're talking about a tough day. You're studying Fox all day, and then you go to see Silence. And I don't know if anyone listening or any of you here have seen the movie Silence. It is one heavy movie. I go there, it's me, one other person by himself, and a family with children. That's the only people in there. And I remember right off the bat, you see the tar pit executions where they're crucifying them in the tar pits. And then they take the lead, this is true story, and they hang them upside down until the blood almost kills them, and then they would cut enough so that the blood would come out and they wouldn't die. So they would prolong their death. It's just excruciating, and you're sweating. And when I was reading some of these accounts, I'm sweating. They're flaying them alive. If you look at the King James original title page, you'll see you'll see two figures on the bottom. I think it's Aaron and Moses on the bottom. But in the balcony, you see the disciples, and they're all holding something. It's what they were killed with. Wow. And you see Bartholomew with a fillet knife because they skinned him alive. So back to Silence. I remember I started smelling popcorn, and then I heard the kids asking for candy, and I'm looking at a screen on a scene that I can hardly digest, and they're trying to digest treats. And I thought of the disconnect between the world we live in and what they're going through. And right now, as we're sitting here in your beautiful church, Kenwood Baptist is a beautiful church. We're sitting here, and there are people that are like Wormbrand who are in some remote underground, lightless cavern, and they're hanging on. I cried when I read his passage anew. Many people listening have read Tortured for Christ. When Christianity Day asked me to highlight 5 books, I highlighted his book and Virginia Prodan, who helped bring down Romania. But with Wormbrand survived for 3 years underground in no silence, no light. They even put felt on their shoes so that he couldn't hear the sound. And you know how he survived? He memorized his sermons for a year, 350 sermons. He had them in memory. And so he could recite those sermons and the scripture in those sermons, and he would just start over as he went through. Isn't that amazing? In the Museum of the Bible, we have a huge stack of papers with just this scrawling. There was a prisoner in Russia, and somehow he could hear through some device he had snuck into the prison or took with him. They didn't know he had. It was sort of like a ham radio. And there's a guy in Texas who every day would read the scripture, and he would copy it down. And if he missed it, he would just wait till the next year and catch it. And he donated that to the museum, has it. And when he got out, he took it to the person in Texas who broadcast that. He did get out. Isn't that amazing? Another story. I'm sitting at the Museum of the Bible, having a cup of coffee in one of our areas there for the guest. There's a fellow there, he and his wife, he had married a missionary, and he's Chinese, she's not Chinese, and they're probably 75. And we were having a nice discussion and everything over coffee, and I turned to him. I really didn't know who he was, but I just said, "Are you going to go to the Watchman Nee opening?" And he goes, "Oh, you don't know who? Let me introduce myself." He was Pastor Wu, who was Watchman Nee's cellmate for 9 years. Wow. And before we finished, we went from having this fun discussion to the veins on the side of his face as he started talking about what Watchman Nee meant to him in those years. And the last thing Watchman Nee did before the last day that he saw him, before they took him away, he gave him his pen. and he brought that pen, and it was like handing us the Holy Grail. He gave it to, it's the only artifact from an imprisoned, martyred Christian in China that we know of. And I'm sitting there going, oh my, it was a holy moment to think that he spent 9 years with this unbelievable person. And so, it was a time over and over where I would reflect on these folks, and it's an evergreen book. So it hopefully will last. And then someone else will write a revised version, So
we need those stories of courage and adversity, and as pastors, pastoring for a number of years, you never know how someone will respond. You can't predict that, and sometimes people that you think will wilt in adversity just emerge with such strength and determination, and you see the work of the Holy Spirit and in people, and you come to it's a humbling spot, and we need these stories, and they protect us from an over-realized eschatology too. And that we fill up, like Paul describes, we fill up what's still lacking in the sufferings of Christ. Tell us about what you learned and your colleague, like talking with family and friends of those who have given their lives for the gospel and for Christ. What are some themes that they shared?
Most of them were aware that their family member would make the ultimate sacrifice, or that it was coming. I mean, most may be too strong of a term, but many of them knew that. So every day they stepped outside the house in those countries, there was a possibility they weren't coming home. And so you might go 2.5 years and then suddenly it happens, or you might go a few months and it might happen. I interviewed a lot of people. I'm on a board in Rwanda, and I interviewed a lot of people associated with the genocides there, and were they martyred or not? All I know is that one nun certainly was. She's the one who protected them. I have pictures of that church and what she did to save those people the first time they came. They came back then and killed everybody. But, she was fully aware that when she turned them into the police and she on the radio, that probably that was going to be, the end of her, and she's represented in the book. So there was awareness. There's some miraculous stories of survival. There's one fellow who was put in the back of a truck, and he knew once you were put in the truck, you were going to be taken out and shot in the head and left in a field, because he used to help them do it. And he became a Christian, and he tried to still be present without them knowing. Well, they found out. They put him in the back of the truck. They took him out to shoot him in the head. Laid him on the ground. The other guys were walking back. And he said, the gun was put on his head, and the fellow leaned down and said, "I'm going to shoot, just don't move." And the guy shot, and he didn't move. And after an hour or so, he finally looked around, took his blindfold off, and the fellow must have become a Christian, because he was doing the same thing that he had done. Could you imagine feeling a gun on your head? And that Virginia Proden is another story, Saving My Assassin. Virginia Proden, she was helping Christians escape Romania. They were being persecuted. An assassin came in, sent by the dictator, put the gun to her head and was ready to shoot her in her office. She was a lawyer, still is a lawyer. She's since immigrated. She escaped after this. She starts telling him about Jesus and, the salvific nature of what he's done, and how he can have peace in his heart, and that he doesn't really want to do this. And he didn't shoot her. He leaves. He would have been punished for not killing her. The driver wrecks the car. I think the driver's killed, and he gets out of the car. and somehow he gets away from the dictator and he gets out of there. I mean, she's safe. She escapes. Before she escapes, someone brings her some toilet paper from the dictator's mansion. You know what the toilet paper is made from? Recycled Bibles from the Christians they've killed or persecuted. Do you know what brought down the dictator? They brought that toilet paper to Virginia Proden, and she took it with her, showed it to the West, and that was the last straw. I spoke yesterday in Miami. On Saturday night, I spoke for the Yamauchi lectures, one of the biggest honors of my life. You know Dr. Yamauchi. Sunday morning, I speak at the Oxford Bible Fellowship, a church he planted in the middle of campus. The pastor of that church, Emmanuel Estrade, his mother was a conscripted seamstress to the same dictator. Wow. And she escaped. The parents are Christians. They somehow escaped from there. And someone, I don't know if it was his mother, but someone that was in the mansion working for him had to have gotten the toilet paper and snuck it out. I'm sitting there. I took a picture of him. I sent it back to people I know. I mean, it's just amazing. In Lebanon, all the things that are happening. So we have my wife and I are privileged to have a golf course, and we have a chicken coop with the Rorman family. We have a golf course by Indiana Wesleyan where the team practices. I have a chicken coop, 100-year-old. It's a lodge. Any of you coming through there, I'll put you up. We only invite guests. We don't charge. The seminary, Wesley Seminary, was having a meeting, and they said, Jerry, we want you to meet the speaker. And it was like this. I was headed on the speaking trip and everything. So I walked out. I've been up most of the night finishing my speeches. And I stepped out, and they were all there, about 30 of them. And I'm just saying hello before I got in my car and go to the airport. And they said, well, this is our speaker. This is May. And May was just this wonderful gal. We're talking. And they said, and tell her what you do at the Museum of the Bible. And she looks at me and she goes, Museum of the Bible? Again, she has a Lebanese accent. Spent a lot of time in Egypt, but Lebanese. She goes, you must know my brother. And she told me your brother's name, Marwan Rifka. And I go, oh my goodness, Marwan is one of the main people in the Museum of the Bible. And he travels around for all these ministries, and I know the story of how they had to escape. And before I could say it, I said, well, I'm just curious, do you know? And she goes, Fawad Masri? That's my nephew. He's one of my very good friends. He's one of the best evangelists today. He mentored Nabil Qureshi, who unfortunately died at about 35. So I'm sitting there, and I almost missed her. And these are people that risk their life on mission fields, escaped bombings in Lebanon, and she's on my back porch. And we hugged, and to this day, we are still chatty Cathy friends. And I've been down to eat with her because they have been on the front lines, risking their lives, escape with their lives for the gospel. And you know what we have in common is the gospel.
That's right.
That's what brought us together in the entire world. She's on my back porch. And I just thank God for that. When I'm in a nursing home, which may not be that much longer, I'm going to be laughing about the May Rifkas in my life.
We're surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses, and fixing our eyes on Jesus, the author, perfecter of our faith, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, despising its shame. And that's the community that we're part of. And what a delight to have you, Jerry, just to talk a little bit more about kind of how the story of Scripture and the discipleship of the nations, it continues to play out, and we're privileged to be part of that, and to embrace the call of Jesus, deny yourself, pick up the cross, follow me. So thank you for being with us on The Word Revealed. Scott, always great to talk Bible with you. And again, thank you for our listeners and joining us on this great conversation about the recent book, Updating the Fox's Book of Martyrs. And may God bless each one of you, and may you be faithful in following Christ in your own life and space. So thank you so much. A privilege to be with you. God bless you all.
Thank you for joining Dr. David Palmer, Senior Pastor at Kenwood Baptist Church in Cincinnati, and Scott Burns, Associate Pastor. Meet us here next time for another conversation on the Bible.